And welcome back, everybody, to I'll Hang Up and Listen, brought to you by Fatty Beer Company, Western New York's premier market and tap room, with over 300 beers to choose from at all 6 Western New York locations and a location in Rochester. And if you happen to be a Sabres fan in Ohio as well. So make sure you check them out. If you need a beer, make sure you make it a Fatty Beer and let them know 2 goalies, 1 Mike sent you. I am Duane from 2 Goalies, 1 Mike, here for a second straight impressive Buffalo Sabres win tonight, 3-2 versus the Ottawa Senators. Must say that I'm extremely happy with the way they performed. I mean, the second, and we put a poll up during the game too. I mean, do you start? Do you ride this streak or this play of James Optimus Reimer into the sunset right now for the rest of the season? I mean, I know that you're paying UPL what you're paying him. Maybe you don't want to mess with the mentality of things. And from a goalie perspective, I understand that. But at the same time, I think UPL needs to understand that, just because you're getting paid like a number 1 goaltender, that means you're going to be the number 1 goaltender. This is a very performance-based league. And you have to put the players on the ice and give you the best chance to win. And for 2 games in a row so far, that has been James Reimer, no doubt about it. Dylan COZENS returning to the lineup, or not to the lineup, I'm sorry, to Buffalo for the first time since the trade at the deadline. And, he didn't get booed. I thought he was received very well by Sabres fans. We made the comparison on Twitter between him and Jack and the receptions they both got. And granted, those are 2 very different situations, night and day, different situations. I feel that the way Sabres fans receive Dylan is due to the way he handled himself post-trade and the way he spoke about his time in Buffalo, and, the fact that he understood this was a business and that he wasn't giving them the results that they needed in order to win. And now he has a fresh start in Ottawa. But he looks back on his time in Buffalo with a lot of happiness and, regret that they weren't able to figure things out, and even mentioned how badly he wanted to be part of the solution here in Buffalo. So you have to appreciate that as a Sabres fan, and you look at through like a different lens than the way we did with Jack, right? Because it wasn't just the way that Jack, everything that transpired with Jack, it wasn't just post-game comments. And I think most fans were on his side with the injury issues. I think most fans agreed that he should have been able to choose his form of surgery in that whole situation. I think it was the way he handled himself leading into the whole situation right after the trade, admitting that he requested a trade, which led to the Taylor Hall signing, which blew up in our face. So, I mean, we'll get into that. And then I thought, Bernard Docker, he getting, points in back-to-back games. I think it's 3 points in 2 games with a goal, and I think he did an assist tonight. And honestly, a very impressive goal. I even mentioned he's not known for that type of play, scoring goals, but it was a very well-placed shot through a screen that beat Forsberg, and I believe that was the game tying goal. And then Tage went on to score the game winning goal off a nice pass from Benson. So a lot to get into here, a lot to unpack. But yeah, we're going to hit your comments right away. Go out for Mauricio, saw some desperation night, block shots, winning battles, boards, clearing in front of net. Thank God Quinn didn't cost us the game in the 3rd period. Forced puck off puck constantly, defensive liability. Rosen lost on the 4th line with Kozak and Starsky and Hutch Malenstein play Rosen with Krebs, and offensive threat line seemed a little chaotic, disorganized, disconnected. Who are the top 6 players? That is unknown. And then how's the Red Rocket Baron? MIA missed the Winnipeg game. Didn't deserve to win. Outshot, outplayed, high danger chances tonight. Lesser competition. Duane, what's wrong with Norris? 6 games, lost injury. Yeah, he's only played in 3 out of possible 9 games. They haven't really disclosed what's wrong with him other than the fact that it's been a lingering injury. And I think I'm not sure if maybe one of you guys was tearing in the building again tonight. I'm assuming at the home game it was. I'm not sure, but he was at a couple games in a row on the road trip. I like to think that that's not a good look for Kevin Adams, right? The main piece to the trade of a core piece of Dylan COZENS. you want him in the lineup, and he's now missed 6 out of possible 9 games. Not a good look if you're Kevyn Adams. Definitely not. We'll talk about that from Big Fungus. Nothing like winning meaningless games in March. Sabres get a top 4 pick, but we'll probably let Pittsburgh or Philly pass them. Directionless team led by gutless leaders. Ian, and here's my thoughts on all of that too. I do want a top 3 pick. I genuinely do. But as a fan who I've said it before and I'll say it again, I'm just kind of done rooting for losing. Do I want that pick? Yes. But am I going to be heartbroken if we end up out of the top 3 and in the top 5 of a pick? No, I'm not. I think we learned our lesson when we tanked for McDavid and we didn't win it. I think we learned our lesson that let's not root for that stuff and let the ping pong balls fall as they may. Just because we're not just because we're obviously don't have the best odds or top 3 odds doesn't mean we can't still win the lottery. We've seen it happen with other teams. So let the ping pong balls fall as they may. From Mauricio, Docker, impressive, like his mobility, IQ, speed, offensive game. He needs to play more physical. I think we'll see more of that as he continues to play. He's just had played 2 games so far. When you are in last place again, tough to get much out of any win. With this group and hopefully this new identity that we've seen from them since the trade deadline, I like to think that every win matters in terms of building something different in that locker room. Adams fired, Wilford fired, Appert, Ellis banned, barred, dismissed, deported. If Norris had previous injury before the trade, did Adams know? Do Sabres have a grievance if undisclosed? I mean, we do know that there was an injury history, especially with the shoulder. He did play a handful of games. I don't know if that is a grievance thing. That's a good question. I have to imagine that Ottawa had to have disclosed said injury if there was an injury at the time. I have to imagine that Buffalo knew about it because I'm sure that you would hope that he would have had to have passed some type of physical before the trade or be fit. Because you can't. I'm pretty sure there's a rule you can't trade an injured player, or an injured player can't be played. Injured players can't just be traded. Actually, I don't know because I remember the Evander Kane deal. He was in the midst of surgery when we made that deal for Evander Kane. So I don't know what the rules state or if it's different at the NHL level. Sabres would be insane if not to trade first round pick, prospect a player for top 6. I agree with that if they don't have a top 3 pick, because I think that this draft, there is a ton of talent in that top 3 and some can't miss players. That if you think about it, again, you have to remember in this light, guys, if you're trading that pick and you want a top 6 guy, you have to get a top 6 guy to agree to come here. So you have to weigh that, right? You have to weigh, am I more likely to get the top 6 player via the draft and letting him develop? Or am I taking my chances in the trade market with whoever's willing to waive a no trade clause to come here? Because at that point, you're really risking, it's kind of like what you did with Bowen Byram when you traded Middlestat. Bowen Byram had no choice to come here because he was an RFA. Are there guys in restricted free agency who don't have a no movement clause that you can make a deal for? I think that's the only way you're finding that player. So you have to weigh that. Is it better to find a guy who's entering their RFA year or doesn't have a no move clause, who won't have a choice in the matter, or is it better to draft said player and develop him? I don't know. That's a good question. Next time we do a podcast, we have more time. We'll definitely discuss that. Too bad Docker won't be here next year. We already have our seventh defenseman, Jacob Bryson. No, there's no way they're going to let that. He's going to be signed. No shot. There's no way they're letting that guy walk. I don't think so. I want to see Rosen play with Tage eventually, and then want to see JBD with Darlene. I agree. I've liked what I've seen out of Jacob Bernard Docker so far. JBD, as I saw on Twitter earlier. So again, we'll see what happens. I love what I've seen from him so far. Did they really boo Samuelson? I mean, I don't know. I'm assuming they did because he's just been horrible. Adams' ignorance, incompetence, nor his previous injury undisclosed. NHL HQ needs to investigate. The last thing Sabres need is another high-rated prospect. They need veteran. I don't disagree with you, Jack. I just don't think you say that, sure, but you're not trading a top 3 pick for a guy like top 6 players are normally have trade protection, and more often than not, the Buffalo Sabres are on those no trade lists. So the reality of it is you're hoping to find a Bowen Byram type level player, but his version is a top 6, a guy who isn't necessarily totally proven in the league, but has a high ceiling. Now, because you're just not going to get guys to waive their no movement clause to come to Buffalo. You're just not. Which is why I think if you have a top 3 pick, there's no way, unless something falls into Adams' lap, there's no way he's not making that pick. Now, if you fall out of the top 3 or top 5, okay, then I can see you looking more at RFAs that wouldn't have a choice in the matter. Okay, you could take a shot that way. But there just aren't many top 6 caliber players out there that are already proven veteran players, like you said, Jack, that are going to be available for you to trade for, because most of them all have some type of trade protection, and I highly doubt you're going to see them waive said trade protection to come to Buffalo. It's just the position the Sabres have put themselves in, unfortunately. Same old, win when it doesn't matter, lose another good draft pick. I don't think we're there yet. We're still at the bottom of the East. Last time I looked, we were 4th last in the NHL. So I mean, I wouldn't say that, they put themselves in much better of a position. I mean, this is still a Sabres team. Granted, you're buoyed by a great play by James Reimer for 2 games in a row. UPL has not been reliable at all this year. I totally agree. He has been very much inconsistent. And as of right now, because you want to see Lindy is playing or coaching to put the best possible record together, because, I mean, we know how Terry works. You never know. He could let go of Lindy. So he's probably going to want to string some wins together here. He's not playing for a draft pick. So sad but true, Jack. Based on my but honestly, based on what I said earlier, Schaefer, Higgins, and Misa are campus. I agree. Those are top 6 guys in the NHL. I'm not saying they're going to be like Celebrini, who's going to have that big of an impact on your team, but they very well could be. They very well could be. Josh Allen needs to butter up Mitch Marner. I agree. Deion Dawkins, who I know has some type of relationship with Mitch. I know that for a fact. So use those 2 guys as your top selling points to get them to come to Buffalo. He is a massive, 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 massive Bills fan. What's a top 14 pick done in 14 years? I don't know, man. I think Rasmus Dahlin is on any other team in the National Hockey League where you're competing for the playoffs. Rasmus Dahlin is a top 3 defenseman in the league. He hasn't had a consistent defensive partner on this team. Obviously, he's had some success with Bowen Byram, but I mean, realistically, I genuinely think on any playoff team in the National Hockey League, he's a top 3 defenseman in the league. I think the failure of the power play this year has really hampered his production in terms of, like, compared to your Quinn Hughes and your Cale Makars and those guys that put up a lot of points. I mean, you get a lot of points in the power play. This power play, the structure has been awful this season. So I'd like to think that Dahlin is a bona fide stud, without a doubt. And you can look at him as a former 1st overall pick that did pan out. It's just unfortunate that this team, he's been on through 4 or 5 head coaches, or I think 4 head coaches already in his short career so far. That's not much to develop with. You know what I mean? You're jumping to a new structure every other 2 years. That's not how you develop players, but he's been fantastic this year. He was great last year. And he hasn't even reached his ceiling yet. I truly do believe that. Ride James Reimer, but then again, we can't fall out of the draft lottery. Again, going back to those comments, like, I think that I I agree. You don't want to fall out of a top 3 position, but you also can't tell the guys to just to play to lose. That's not how competitors are built. Um, listen, I it's a tough thing. I don't want to root for a team to lose. I really don't, but I do want a top 3 pick in this draft. Because, like you said, you have Hagens, you have Schaefer, you have Misa, you have a couple other guys that are can't miss guys in the top 4 of this draft who can come and play in the NHL next year if you want them to. I don't know, man. We'll see. Duane, how are they going to sell this team to us next year without massive changes? At this point, it's the same roster and coaches on paper. What are they going to do? I don't think there's any way you bring this coaching staff next year. No way. No way. How can you? How can you justify bringing back Matt Ellis? They'll find something else for Matt Ellis to do. There's no way he's an assistant. You just can't sell that. You can't. You can't sell Seth Appert as an assistant. I mean, maybe they keep Seth, they put him a different role on the bench, but there's no way you have Marty Wilford on this bench. You need to bring in 2 new assistants for Lindy. There's just no way. Maybe they move at Matt Ellis somewhere. They put Seth Appert as the eye in the sky. I mean, there's nothing he's done. The power play has been atrocious this year. You can't sell that to anybody, any fan. I know. And the same way they brought these coaches in last year. Listen, you just can't justify it. You can't justify it. I'm sorry, you can't. I think you'll have a lot. I mean, you're probably already seeing a big dip in season ticket renewals this year. It's just going to get worse if you retain these assistants. I truly do believe that. How does the lottery work in the bottom 15 or bottom 10? I believe it's the bottom 15. I could be wrong. If somebody else has that answer, I'd appreciate it. But yeah, I genuinely do. And you were talking about major changes in the offseason, what changes need to be made. I think that the amount of national attention the Sabres have got from your owner, with that article that came out from The Athletic. And then on top of that, you have obviously the attention that the sit down between Dahlian and Kevin Adams got via, Paul Bissonnette with Spit and Chicklets, which was initially reported, the information he got was from Elliot Friedman, who's a very reliable source. So, who knows what was said, but I would like to think that from that meeting might light up, because I don't think it's a coincidence that you've seen Terry all of a sudden attending games after that in the Athletic article. I think he's starting to pay attention more, and you have to imagine that you're not just going to settle for bringing back the same roster. You have to make some type of big splash here, whether it's in free agency, whether it's a trade. Something has to be done to really ignite this fan base again. You cannot run back this same roster. There is no way you can. I do want to get back into the game. I know we have a ton of comments here. A lot of them. Sorry, I'm not going to get to all of them. But keep replying. I'll pull up what I can. If you've made a comment here in the thread before and you want me to bring it up, just type it in again and I'll do my best. But tonight was a really hard fought game. To what Mauricio said earlier, you had guys blocking shots, selling out, getting in lanes, doing everything they can to win a hockey game tonight. I thought, Optimus Ryan, James Reimer looked fantastic for the second game in a row, made some huge saves. You can't fault them on either 2 goals. And I genuinely think if you are coaching to win, which I'm assuming Lindy is doing, you're going to ride Reimer here. I think their next game is when? I'll pull up the schedule here right now. Their next game is, they have the Penguins on Thursday. So they have a day's rest tomorrow and they go right back in on Thursday. I mean, I could see Reimer if he getting that game, and then it'll be a split between him and UPL Saturday and Sunday. You have the Penguins on Thursday, the Flyers on Saturday, and then the Capitals on the 30th, which should be an interesting game. I highly doubt Ovechkin will score the amount of goals he needs between now. I mean, you never know what's Alexander Ovechkin, but that'd be a game to watch in Washington to see if Ovechkin breaks the goals record against the Buffalo Sabres. No, that'd be great. Seeing that happen against us. Why not? Why not us? I could definitely see them riding Reimer here into the weekend, and then UPL finally probably gets the start either if Reimer has another good game against the Penguins and he gets his third start in a row, I could definitely see UPL starting on Saturday the 29th, and then they give him Reimer the 30th. Could definitely see that because they'll definitely split those games. From Hall Hamilton, you can bring Lindy back, but he needs to bring in his own assistants. When have you ever seen a hire coach get hired? You can't bring his own guys. But if Lindy had a choice, Pekka would have been behind the bench. Pekka should have been behind the bench the year before. The Sabres wouldn't offer him a bench position. They wanted him to be the eye in the sky, which is what Ellis is doing this year. They chose Ellis to be on the bench over Pekka, which is egregious. And that's why he is no longer with the organization, and he is currently with the New York Rangers. Now, if that entire staff gets fired, I could see him possibly coming back to Buffalo under Lindy. I think if there's any guy that could lure him back to be their assistant, it would be Lindy Ruff. We'll see. Actually, as I'm talking about this, goal number 889 for Alexander Ovechkin. So he is 6 goals away from breaking that record. So maybe I spoke too soon here, guys. Maybe I spoke that game against Washington on Sunday. We could see history against the Buffalo Sabres. And if there's any team that you could have asked me, if you would have asked me before the season, what team do I think Ovechkin would break the record against? It would be the Buffalo Sabres, because that is our luck, right? That is how things kind of shape out for the Buffalo Sabres. I think Terry's attending games because the Bills are in the offseason mode and his daughter is off the court. I mean, I don't know, man. I think you have to have some there has to be some insecurities there. We know there's some insecurities when it comes to the Sabres and Terry, and just the constant negative press he's been seeing. That I think that has led to it too. From Jack, move Lindy to front office as president, hire a GM, hire a coach. I mean, we could say that till we're blue in the face, but we know how this owner feels about president of hockey ops since the LaFontaine ordeal. Getting back to the game, Dylan Cousins, the way he was received tonight, you have to say that he handled this himself really well, right? In all of the interviews leading into tonight, the questions he answered about his time in Buffalo leading into tonight, the day before, and Lance Lyasowski, he tweeted out an article, definitely worth it to read if you can, about his time in Buffalo and how much he looks back, and a positive mention. He wishes he would have gotten it right. I kind of hear the things that he said, and I think of some of the things that Sam Reinhart said when he left. Nothing but respectful, which is the reason he didn't get booed, and it's the reason Dylan didn't get booed tonight. So I look at that, and I know I saw some comparisons to the way Jack handled himself, and I tend to agree. Like, it's night and day different situation, no doubt about it. There were a lot of factors that led to Jack wanting to leave. And in a lot of respects, as a fan, I understood why Jack wanted out. You want to be another part of a rebuild. He didn't. I get that. I totally understand that. The team, the dysfunction while he was here since he was drafted. But I think that the situations are obviously way different, even when you don't even factor in the neck and the issues. Because I think most fans, including myself, were on Jack's side with that. It was his body, his choice. But how he requested a trade behind closed doors, and how the organization responded by signing Taylor Hall in a COVID offseason where guys were signing for, not pennies on the dollar, but you had guys like Anthony Duclair and Carter Verhaeghe signing for like $1 million for one season. And then here we are blowing $8 million and giving him a no movement clause on Taylor Hall, who gave you 2 goals in his time as a Buffalo Sabre, which was a joke. But that whole signing happened because of Jack wanting out, and Buffalo was like, well, hold on here. Let us make some moves here and tell us, and hopefully this makes you happy. Well, didn't work out. Here it is neck. And then he definitely officially wanted out. That interview he did with Elliot Friedman after the trade, how people criticized Jack that after the trade was made official, instead of tweeting out a message to Sabres fans, this does play into it. It does. How instead of his first response wasn't, thank you, Sabres fans. It was a few days later when he tweeted out that video. Instead, he chose to say Vegas, baby, and him photoshopped in a Vegas Knights uniform. And I understand that it was a long road to get there for him. with everything that was going on in his life with the Sabres. I understand that, but fans perceive that a certain way, and it wasn't going to be a good way. You know, the smoke around him caring about so much about how he was received when he came back to Buffalo. You know, it just he didn't handle it very well, and it led to him still being booed. With the post game comments. Now the way Dylan handled himself, granted he didn't live up to the contract or the expectations that we as fans had for him, but he had nothing but positive things to say about Buffalo and his teammates, and even said, "I have a lot of best friends on that team that I miss dearly." That's why you didn't get booed. That's why he didn't get booed. So extremely happy with the little video package they put together with him. I think they should have did one separately for me. It's not like Denny Gilbert was here for a very long time. Granted, he was a Buffalo guy, so you liked having him, but they probably should have did two separate things for the two players. But I'm not going to nitpick. But extremely happy with the way he was treated, and then he did get a point tonight. He did get an assist, so on the first goal. So. He's performed very well since going to Ottawa. And then piggybacking off that, Josh Norris, only playing 3 out of a possible 9 games so far as a Buffalo Sabre. Not a good look for Kevin Adams. And you have to imagine that, that's something that Terry Pegula is thinking about while he's attending these games. Like, why is the guy that we traded a core piece for not playing? Like, did we know about this injury? They said it was a lingering injury, and now it's kept him out for 6 games. I don't know. I hear you guys, see a lot of you guys wondering if there's some type of grievance the Sabres can make with the league. Did they know that this was a serious, or is this just another Buffalo follow-up where they were willing to accept the fact that this guy was injured? I genuinely would like to know, and I was talking about this with producer Steve earlier today, what other offers were out there? Because we were made to believe that like 20 different teams were calling on Dylan Cozens. Like, was this the best offer available? An injury-prone forward who does have a ton of scoring ability, who, when healthy, could be a fantastic player, but has already seen a ton of injury history with said player. So we saw the smoke around Detroit heading into the Four Nations break. What was the offer? I'd be very interested to see what that was. I don't know, man. It would be a good question that I would like answers to. What other offers were on the table, and why did this one seem to make most sense if you're Kevin Adams? Because right now it's clear as day who has won this trade so far. Obviously, we're only 9 games into him as a Buffalo Sabre, but he's only played 3. It's not a good look so far. I'd investigate that trade. Did Adams get the memo on injury? Montreal and Vancouver called about Cozens too. I did hear that. Seth, Matthew, Martin must go. Same with Kevin Devine. Kevin Devine has been with the organization since before I was born. I'm almost 23. Fire that old fuck. Yeah, I think there's a lot of house cleaning that has to happen this offseason. Just from the front office standpoint, scouting standpoint, you really got to start from fresh. And I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter over the past month, like how the Sabres, these armchair owners how they would handle it. And I tend to agree with a lot of it. You hire somebody in a president of hockey operation situation who's literally done everything in the NHL, has worked almost at every single position, and has a lot of respect around the league. That, if you are a free agent, you see who is running the show now, and that might make you think a little bit more about it. Could Buffalo be a destination for me? A guy who's going to hire a GM who has worked his way up to being a GM, wasn't just gifted the position because he has a strong relationship with the owner. Because we all know Terry Pegula hired Kevin to be a yes man because he trusts him. Bringing in real assistant coaches who have earned that opportunity, because none of these guys, in my opinion, have earned the opportunity. Have paid their dues. And again, I just don't foresee Lindy losing his job. And I don't think he should. I think he should be given at least till next year to figure this out, because he inherited this roster. It's not something that he built. What do you guys say about the situation with former Blue Jackets GM following some Sabres Twitter guys? You get that Terry at games. Looks like Jim K and Terry were sitting pretty far apart. There was a thing, I believe, with I forget me. How do you say his name? Yarbo. Who was it? It was. Let me see here. It was yes, Jarmo Kekalainen. I believe he was formerly with the Blue Jackets, maybe. I think he'd be a great fit as a GM. He has a lot of experience, and he's even said, and in a recent interview, he states, "I've had offers from overseas teams, but I want to stay with the NHL. Have had success. I'm proud of rebuilding teams. It's nice building something out of nothing." Well, tell me something. Tell me that doesn't apply to the Buffalo Sabres quite a bit. And you have to feel that, Kevin Adams is really feeling the heat of this whole situation. I mean, I don't know. What position is he put in? Is it a GM position, a different position? You have to consider that Terry is attending these games. He has seen the results. Granted, they've just won 2 games in a row, which is great. But you can't just you can't go into that. You can't win in March and April and see this at face value and be like, okay, they're heading in the right direction. Let's see if we can run it. You can't run this back. You just can't, because we've seen this story before, right? We as Steelers fans have seen this happen time and time again. You cannot run this roster back. You cannot run these assistants back. You cannot run the scouting. Like, you have to make changes. You have to do it as soon as the season's over with. You can't go into the draft with. Again, I know it's tough to fire those people because they've been doing the scouting for you all season. But how can you trust some of these guys to make these picks, to make these decisions anymore? I don't know. To me, I don't know. To me, that's something that you just have to consider as soon as the season ends. Making those big, at least from away from the ice perspective, those changes that need to be made. Terry would never fire, though. He's too cheap. Get some ex-players in there like every other team. Ryan Miller for president. I would love to have Ryan Miller in here running as a front office position. I think he would love that too. I know he loves the Sun, but I know he values his time as a Buffalo Sabre. I know he really cares about this city and this franchise. I think he would be very honored to help right this ship along with Lindy. I also think that you saw Daniel Alfredson was an assistant coach on the bench tonight for Ottawa. Talk about a guy who has so much respect around the entire league, who has been in so many different situations throughout his career. I would love that. Next season should be all or nothing with this team. I agree, Connor. Ryan Miller I know he worked for San Jose, but if he's offered a better position in Buffalo, he might take it. I'm not sure what his contract looks like with San Jose. It'd be great. Thomas Vanek Scout. Yeah, again, former players. That's why I think San Jose, Mike Grier, the connection there is no mistake that those guys work for San Jose when Mike Grier is the GM. He understands. Mike Grier understands the value of having those types of players in your organization and what it brings. And that's something Buffalo has failed to do. Mr. Devine, I know you've been here for 26 years, but you need to go look for a new job. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Yeah, listen, I think there needs to be a lot of cleaning house, top to bottom in this organization. I don't disagree with that at all. I want to get back to the game. Jacob Bernard Docker with a goal and I believe an assist tonight. He looked great. I believe, who did he play with tonight? I forget who his defensive partner was, but I thought he looked great. I thought that, again, him scoring a goal, which I think he even mentioned that's not normally in his game, was nice. Seeing him contribute in more ways than one on the score sheet. But I thought defensively he looked really good too. He looked pretty polished. So I'd like to see, I agree with somebody in the comments earlier, I'd like to see him with Darlene, to see how well he'd played with. Again, Darlene is a guy that can make just about anybody look good, but let's see how he looks. And, we saw the Jacob Chychrun signing today, and we know how much of a comparable Byram is to Chychrun in terms of 5-on-5 play and the analytics and everything. So if you're Jacob, if you're Bowen Byram, you're looking at the Jacob Chychrun deal, and you're probably looking for a number between what Owen Power makes and what Jacob Chychrun makes. Which are you willing to pay Bowen Byram that kind of money? I don't know. I don't know how Kevin Adams feels about Bowen Byram. I think that for the most part, Bowen Byram has been a very good defenseman for the Buffalo Sabres. I know he gets criticized a lot when he doesn't play with Darlene, but I mean, look at the rest of the defensemen on this team. From a defensive standpoint, it's been pretty shitty. I mean, Owen Power is still trying to find his way defensively. Obviously, he's very gifted offensively, but you have 3 offensively minded defensemen on this team, and you don't really have any true stay-at-home defensemen on this roster right now who could pair with any 3 of those guys, and you can get success and the best possible defensive output from. You just don't have that guy on this team. I don't know. We'll see. So make Razor president of hockey operations do something. No, I think Razor's really happy with his role right now, even though he's getting hit in the head with pucks. I don't think he'd put himself in that type of position. There's got to be better options out there. But yeah, I would like to see. It's going to be an interesting offseason for sure when it comes to Bowen Byram. Do they try and make a deal work with him? Or, again, I know they are going to own his RFA rights. Does the team offer sheet him? And we end up getting a ton of picks out of it? Does a team offer sheet him and we match it? Does the Sabres, take him to arbitration? Do they make him a qualifying offer? Do they try and sign him long term? Or they just try and trade him leading into the draft outright? Because, again, I think he's a very good defenseman who he believes he's a first pair defenseman, and you can get a lot to trade for Bowen Byram. You could. So for me, I know I saw somebody on Twitter mention they would trade him for a veteran. I wouldn't trade him just for a veteran defenseman. I want more out of that deal. Personally, I want top 6 help. I don't know. I think you find a veteran defenseman somewhere in free agency. I mean, I'm not sure exactly who is entirely available, but if I'm trading Bowen Byram, that's a guy that I think, again, it's tough to find a guy that in a top 6 situation that's willing to come to Buffalo, but maybe you find him as an RFA, same kind of Casey Middlestat deal where you find a guy who can't waive a no trade clause and has to come here. I don't know. We'll see. But overall, just ecstatic with the way this team played tonight. I'm on both sides of that fence. I'm like sitting on the middle of the fence with one leg on each side of I want the best possible draft pick, but I also don't want this team to end the season just being miserable. I mean, it's miserable not making the playoffs, but I just don't want it losing mindset anymore. And I think any fan who thinks that losing is a good thing for the mentality of this team in the locker room, I'm sorry, you're just wrong. You're wrong. I want them to compete, but if I can get both, where you're still putting yourself in a situation to get top 3 pick, and then also on the top of that, you're still finishing the season, look at this team as a whole, like, well, man, they played their balls off to the end of the season. They didn't give up on themselves. Yeah, I don't know. I would like something like that. Zucker, Green, and McLeod there. I thought, well, McLeod has been fantastic too, by the way. McLeod, I see him getting a lot of like comparisons to the way Briere came in when he first came to Buffalo, the way he played, the way he plays with speed, creates chances with speed, how he can score or can be a playmaker off the rush. I've been impressed a lot with McLeod. That has definitely turned into a great trade on. But and again, I too, I'll admit that I was upset with that trade when it first happened, because you look at the point output while he was with with Edmonton. At face value, right away, you're like, oh, come on, not a good trade. A top prospect that a high first round draft pick like Savoy. For essentially a third line player in Ryan McLeod, but it has worked out in Buffalo's favor. He's been fantastic this season. In stretches too. There were times where he was very quiet and didn't contribute much offensively, but you can say that about a lot of players in this team. I have been very happy with the results we've seen so far from Ryan McLeod for sure. Another player that has been fantastic. Also, a couple clicks for Lindy. His career 600 regulation wins for the Sabres under Lindy Ruff. That was his 600th regulation win. I believe that the stat was for the Buffalo Sabres with Lindy Ruff. So a couple clicks for him. That's a big achievement, big accomplishment. So congrats to Lindy on that. Well deserved. And, you know, we'll see what happens here going into the next couple of games heading into the weekend. From Jay Bird, Razor is such a treasure. He deserves to be calling playoffs for this team. Sabres fans craving for success. The money this team can make with even a playoff berth. Fans will be back in a second. We've said this so many times on this show. I was on with Petey and Rive on After the Whistle last week. I said it there. This team thrives, and Jean-Luc Grandpierre said it too. You know, in his 2 seasons when he played with Buffalo. This is a very blue-collar city. I know it's something we hate saying over and over. It's a cliche when you talk about Buffalo, but it's true. It is a very blue-collar city here in Buffalo, and they pride themselves on taking their pail bucket to work, the hard hat, the whole 9 yards. And if you put in an effort every single night where you are never questioning the effort level of this team, you know that they went out there and they left it all on the ice, this team will back you up. This fan base will back you up as a team. They will. I've seen it so many times in the past, and they will buy in. And eventually a playoff berth will come when you play like that consistently every night and you put a playoff caliber team on the ice and you get that effort out of it every night. So, like, I agree. And if there is anybody who deserves to call a playoff game, it's Rob Ray. It is Rob Ray. Give this guy, you know, what he deserves, what this fan base deserves, and that is a playoff berth, hopefully in 25-26. I couldn't agree with that comment more. From Jaybird. And welcome, Jaybird. I haven't seen you in the chat before. So welcome to the chat. So if you are, I see you're watching on YouTube. Anybody who, I say this every episode, anybody who enjoys this content, whether you're watching on Facebook, you're watching on Twitter, you can follow us at Duane S39, myself, my co-host Connor Hurlius at CHurls13. You can follow us at 2goalies1mike on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. But if you are watching on YouTube, please, please, please make sure that you are hitting that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you know when we go live. And please, please, please like this video. So I'm looking at you, Jaybird. If you're not subscribed, please make sure you're subscribed. Please make sure you're liking this video. Help us with that algorithm. I appreciate the hell out of all of you. I'm going to wrap things up here about 45 minutes in. Sabres win 3-2. Another impressive effort. I imagine, again, we will see that we see James Reimer on there for the next game. Again, I believe against Pittsburgh on Thursday, Philly Saturday, and then Washington on Sunday. We'll be on OV Watch Sunday for sure, depending on how his games between now and then play out. We could possibly see history. I don't know. So that being said, guys, I'll hang up and listen. You guys have a fantastic night. And as always, go Sabres.